Jack LeBangie back with Bruce Fenton talking about issues in and around, well, let's say the state right now.
Okay.
I'm wondering, now I drive down the Mass Pike or 95 or any of those main roads a lot. Should, and this is my own question, you can answer it, I'm totally surprising you with this one actually, it's kind of shocking. Do you think that the Massachusetts State Police should be tested for PEDs?
What are PEDs?
Performance enhancing drugs, like steroids, stuff like that. You think that? What do you think?
I have not thought about that. Should they be tested for performance enhancing drugs? Well, let's back up a minute. First of all, I'd say...
You ever met a nice state trooper?
Yeah, I've met a nice state trooper. I think there's a lot of police that we have issues with because they are partly a victim of circumstance, where they have these politicians and other groups that have pushed for quotas and these kind of things, plus this militarization.
Quota exists, so you believe quotas exist?
Quotas definitely exist.
Absolutely, I'm 100% with that.
Why, is there any debate? Is there people who think quotas don't exist?
My girlfriend thinks that quotas do not exist, and I was telling her on Saturday, I said, it's the end of the month, that's why these guys are all out here.
Quotas definitely exist. I didn't even know there was a debate about that.
Okay, good.
I thought that was like for sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm 100% with
but
quotas.
Quotas exist, and they're wrong. It's terrible. You shouldn't have quotas for how many people you arrest.
Right.
So a few problems with police. One, quotas definitely. Another, victimless crime. We got to end the drug war. Stop police bothering people who haven't hurt somebody else. Stop the war, especially on drugs. That would change a lot of things, decrease crime radically, and it would decrease actual violent crime, because about half the crime in America, the violent crime is done by gangs. Gangs would be a fraction of what they are now if they didn't have drugs and drug revenue, and a few other things that are victimless crimes. So then also a lot of people are in prison for victimless crimes. They're just people who were, they had drugs. And they're not violent at all, but they're in prison. So the police become violent, they're kicking down doors and getting these people in the drug war. So if you got rid of that, that would solve a lot of problems. And then the third thing, which kind of goes in with the others, is the militarization of police. You have these police being given these cool toys of, basically tanks. And I love it. Every time I say this, people, the internet lawyers go on there, well, it's not technically a tank. Okay, tank-like vehicles. All right, that are being given to local police departments. These MRAPs and these other vehicles that are basically like tanks. Huge bulletproof vehicles. And then, the other problem is asset forfeiture. This is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. They have all kinds of ways they can just take money from you without even accusing you of a crime. If they just have some suspicion, they can just take your money. Good luck getting it back. I mean, if you're traveling around and you have a legitimate reason to have a whole bunch of cash on you, and there's plenty of legitimate reasons.
Constables can put liens on your house even if it's your son's doing something wrong in a different name.
Yeah, they have all kinds of ways to take your stuff, and they're proud of it. There's pictures that you can find on the internet of, they'll have a Cadillac and the police will even put a bumper sticker and say, we seized this from a drug dealer. It's like, well, in a lot of cases, number one, that's sometimes a victimless crime. Number two, sometimes they just take it with no trial. It's way harder to put somebody in jail, and it's too easy to put some people in jail in some ways, and some things shouldn't even be jailable offenses. But it's much easier for somebody to just take your assets. And there's cases on this. There was going back years, there was a thing on a news program. A guy was a Christmas tree dealer, and he went and he had a short flight to go to pay cash for Christmas trees, so they caught him with a bunch of cash. They said, drug dealer, and they took it. This guy's like an old farmer who was buying Christmas trees because he sells them.
Yeah.
And that would make sense that would be something you would pay cash for. There's a lot of things, less and less these days with credit cards, but a lot of things, if you have a legitimate need to carry cash, let's just take it from you.
Right.
And good luck getting it back. It might take you 3 years, lawyers and everything, to just get your money back legitimately. So,
and hopefully.
So those are some things. So performance enhancing drugs, I would say, you got to be, probably I haven't thought about this issue.
There's about 70% on steroids. I would guarantee it.
You think?
I know for a fact that there is a detective in a town near where you live, and this is me saying it, that had 2 safes, because I dated his ex-wife, and she never got the key to the other safe, finally got the key to the other safe, and found steroids in it. That's a fact.
Anecdotal.
Anecdotal.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with you. That's me saying it, Bruce.
All right, so I have no idea. I've never even heard about this until 1 minute ago when you mentioned it. So I haven't even thought about it. But I would be inclined. I'm inclined to more freedom. So I would say, let people do what they want. When it comes to police, I would like to reduce their power, reduce the number of police, and everything else. But assuming we still have police, then where I would probably be extra cautious about things like steroids is if it's going to affect their aggression.
Yes. Exactly.
Those kind of things.
That's my point. Yeah.
With a lot of things, and forget about police, non-police, regular people, police or non-police, something like steroids or pot or alcohol, I say go ahead and use it, but if you do something wrong and hurt somebody, well then it should be a much more strict penalty. If you accidentally drive your car off the road and hurt somebody because your hand slipped, well that's a way different thing than if you drink. It should be a huge, huge penalty. And police should be held to an even higher standard. So what I would say, again, I haven't thought about it much, but I would probably lean towards let people do what they want. I don't know if police, do police have drug tests for things like pot and stuff like that?
They do for that, yes.
I wonder what they do in places where it's legal. Because I would assume they'd be allowed to use it.
It's only legal in Colorado.
But what about police in Colorado? Because they're allowed to drink in their spare time, off duty.
Right.
So it's interesting. And what about medical marijuana? Is there police who have the medical marijuana permits in places where it's... That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Well, then that would be legal.
Answer on the comments if you know.
It's like if...
Well, they should be able to do legal things.
Let's say a police officer's on an anti-anxiety or an antidepressant. He's got a doctor's note, so what's the difference?
Right. Well, they do treat it differently in different places. But basically, police should be held to a higher standard than other citizens. And they should... notice I call them citizens, because sometimes they don't call themselves citizens.
Right.
It's weird. They sometimes, some of them, call us civilians.
Right.
Who do they think they are? Rambo? They're in the military? It's us versus them.
I think a lot of them were stuffed in trash bags or trash cans when they were younger. That's my point again.
Okay, perhaps.
Someone coerce it. Go ahead.
Anyway, people should do what they want, but they should be held to a higher standard if they do something that exercises poor judgment, like commit a crime or become aggressive because of using steroids or other drugs or whatever. And if they're police, even higher standard.
I was going to say, do you think they know they're civil servants?
Some really, I think, are forgetting who they work for and what they do.
Yes.
And again, a lot of people say, well, cops are good people. There are good cops.
Definitely.
And a lot of people who really have good intentions in becoming police. And there's been experiments on this. You ever see the study the guy did?
The guy in 1972 down in Cal Berkeley?
With
They flipped they brought the people in, the prison. Yeah. I said, yeah.
You can put people in a bad position, and police are like that. There's a lot of reasons. There's all those reasons I just mentioned. If you're militarized, any man who's given a bunch of crazy equipment is going to want to use it. That's what guys do. Guys who like guns, if you give them an M60, they're going to want to shoot it. You give them a tank-like vehicle, they're going to want to drive it. You give them night vision scopes and ninja outfits, they're going to want to use it. And some of these are in relatively low crime places, a medium-sized city, and they're sitting there with this ninja gear like they're going to fight Al Qaeda, and so they want to use it. It's human nature. And there's other things you want to stick together with people, buddy system. So you go out of your way. I mean, you're kind of a jerk if you're a cop and you rat on your fellow cops. For one thing, your career's over. No cop's going to talk to you. They'll probably figure out a way to kick you off the force.
I mean, you could work in internal affairs. That's about it.
Everybody will hate you.
Yeah.
I am a very, very loyal person. I would probably lean towards that. If I was a cop, I wouldn't want to turn in one of my fellow officers. But you know what? It doesn't make it right. It's a matter of right and wrong. When cops commit crimes, almost never do other cops arrest them or turn them in. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, they cover for them. And what police and police chiefs and politicians need to recognize is this doesn't make it better. It doesn't make them safer. There's a lot of people who hate cops now who didn't used to hate cops. It doesn't make them safer. It doesn't reduce crime. It's counterproductive. So if I was to give advice to a chief, I would say, hey, look, I know it's a brotherhood and everything else, but you've got to think about the big picture. There's a lot of really wrong things that are being done. I have a friend who's a police accountability activist, and I used to think he was a little nuts. He's always talking about the cops this, the cops that. what is this guy, a criminal or something? But I started watching some of these websites and some of these blogs that track police abuse. It's chilling. Yeah. I put a post on my blog of just a typical week of the police abuse. In 1 week, it's, you know, they killed a 94-year-old man in a nursing home because he didn't want to go to the doctor. Wrongdoor raid killed this veteran in his home because they thought he was a drug dealer, but it wasn't. It was somebody down the street. Again and again and again. Shooting dogs like it's a hobby. I mean, really bad abuses. And this is just a typical week. This stuff happens every single day. If you start watching these, I recommend anybody take a look at these police accountability blogs. It's terrifying. And you'll be more scared of police than Al-Qaeda coming in and breaking into your door in the middle of the night. So people in power, police chiefs and others, have got to look at this as an opportunity to say, you know, we got to change this. And they should use their political muscle to pressure politicians to get rid of these victimless crime laws, lower quotas, things like that, and really be more peaceful, have more personal and human accountability with the citizens rather than this, you know, kind of magic line, which doesn't help anybody.
Thanks, Bruce.